Hey everyone, how's it going? Want to let you know we appreciate you if you've been listening to the podcast. This will be the last one for the year since Christmas is next week and then it's rolling into New Year's. So we're going to post this one and then we're going to have a kickoff podcast right after January 1 for the new year. Hope for a big new year for everybody. If you've gotten anything from the podcast, want to let you know we really appreciate it and would love it if you could do us the favor of subscribing on your preferred podcast platform, Spotify, Apple, etc., and or giving us a 5-star review. The and would be great. Subscribe and rate. Leave a little note in the comments. That always helps, not just a blank 5-star. But yeah, we really appreciate you, and hopefully you've gotten something from the podcast. Wanted to just roll into the holiday season. Wanted to kind of just give a little respect to the people in the trades and the people that I've come up around, I've grown up working with, and the people that I think oftentimes get underappreciated. You know, the blue collar trades are very. It's a tough grind, and we live in a world where it's very like dominated by white collar professions and remote work and just a lot of career paths that lose sight of working with your hands and your body and what that means. And the world I come from is the world where you're up before the sunrise, you're getting your cup of coffee, you're getting to the job site, rolling out your tools while the sun's still rising, regardless of the weather, whether that's rain, snow, hot. It's all, you have to be there. If you're cracking off 2x4s and they're frosty and you got to snap them so you can snap the frost off before you start cutting, or if the day's gearing up to be 100 degrees and you're going to be inside working around insulation that's flying around and probably be itchy for the next 3 days. Like, that's something you're not really able to change the course of your day based upon how inconvenienced or how uncomfortable you're supposed to be. It's a 24/7, 365 grind, and people have dedicated their life, their heart, their soul, and their craft to that grind. And I just want to give so much respect. I want to give respect to the unique personalities in the trades that I've come across, and the work ethic, the genuine just. There's a different heart and soul in the trades, and there's a different honor system in the trades that I think is unique and you don't come across in many other avenues of life. And I've seen, guys run the spectrum and what their backgrounds are. Like, for the most part, it's not 4-year college degree, post-grad, etc. Like, this is school of hard knocks, get up and hustle, make something of yourself. Just want to give respect to those people. I want to give respect to the people that are out in the field every day working, not having a vacation plan where they get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks off a year. And if they do get a couple weeks off a year, they're probably still looking for the side work because they want to make a little extra cash for the fam, for their bills, etc. The people that have dedicated themselves to the craft, whether it's stone work, tile work, trim work, framing work, real masters of their craft, and so many of them exist under the radar and they don't get that appreciation. So, just a few I'll give respect to. I'll give respect to first Chucky. Chucky I came across when I was 16, started working on a job site for the first time. I met Chucky within 1 hour working on the job site. Chucky handed me a Newcastle beer, which was a dark brown beer at the time. Little did I know, Chucky was a real unique soul. He was a concrete finisher, and he also did some siding. He, on the weekends, would always tell me how all he wanted to do was sing karaoke with his son, James, and that was his vibe. Chucky was also he was probably a $120, soaking wet, had a scar all the way across his stomach from when he was a kid, and his brother shot him across the stomach and he nearly died, and he loved to sport that thing like a war wound. He'd wear a crop top cut-off shirt like he was from 1982, and he'd work all day and with bags on with this crop top, showing his scar right next to his belly button. He also was the guy that was a natural ice drinker. He every day at the job site would have at least 2 natural ices on each side of his bags, here and here, and he'd be probably popping one every 45 minutes, to drink a 6-pack, 8-pack throughout the course of the day. But it never really affected his work. Kind of just made him better. I never saw Chucky eat, but he was a craftsman, and Chucky's a good dude. So respect for the Chuckies of the world. Respect to my buddy Shane. We'll say rest in peace, Shane, because Shane's no longer with us, but Shane was a badass carpenter. Shane was a Santa Cruz dude, like good old boy. He ran a crew of carpenters, framing some big monsters down in the bay, and he could frame circles around you. But the biggest thing that I remember about Shane is every time you'd meet him at a job site, you'd have a 20, 30-minute talk, and he had nothing but positive vibes, and he always had motivational things to say to you. You can tell the business has ground him down, and he was in his early 50s, and he had been grinding for a long time, and he was tired, and he had come up against a lot of obstacles in his career, but he was a badass framer nonetheless, and could stack a roof with his eyes closed, and he was doing that 5-6 days a week, up into the point early 50s, and unfortunately went on a dirt bike trip with his kids and had a massive heart attack and was taken too soon. But Shane was just a good dude. Also, respect to Bill Schulba, probably one of the baddest tile setters I've ever met. And the crazy thing about Bill was he had an attitude to go with it. You couldn't tell him anything. He knew he was a badass tile setter, and he would tell you any chance he got, and he backed it up with his work. One incredible thing about Bill lived in the valley, and the traffic coming from the valley to the bay was like 2.5 hours each way. But he had a girlfriend and he had a kid in the valley. So every single day, minimum 5 days a week, he would drive from the valley 2.5 hours to work an 8, 9, 10-hour day, and 2.5 hours back home. Go back home, do his thing, repeat every single day. And this dude was such a great tile setter. I mean, he could float a tile back on a tub surround and set the tiles and set a floor in a bathroom in one day, grout it the next day. I mean, he was a savage. One of the stories I remember most about Bill, we were on a job in, I think it was Menlo Park, and he was tiling a master shower, master bathroom, and it was like this curbless walk-in master bathroom, some intricate tiles on the walls with some niches, and then the curbless where you had to float it, where the curb comes up, and it's just flush with the floor. And we had a homeowner on that project that was pretty involved, and by involved, I mean he just wanted to know everything that was going on, so he was always over your shoulder asking questions. Well, Bill was a true artist, and I mean, when I say true artist, his joints were always perfect 90s, perfect T, no size, like any sizable gaps. If the tiles were sizey, he'd shave them so they're perfect. I mean, everything was dead plumb, flat, flush, just a true craftsman when it came to tile. And the owner, for about the 5th time in one day, walked up into the master bath asking Bill questions, and Bill couldn't handle it anymore. So then I was running this job, and Bill was working under me at the time. He ends up yelling at the owner to get the F out of the bathroom, and the owner, kind of shocked, stepped back. Bill slammed the door and locked it, and proceeded to finish tiling the bathroom that day for the next 6 hours, never leaving the bathroom and never letting the owner back in the bathroom. So it was a real Picasso moment, but it's something I really remember. Respect to Bill on that one. Big respect to my buddy Phil. Phil, he's an OG. He was a builder and still is a builder, but primarily was a custom home builder back in the early 2000s, kind of parlayed that into building big spec houses. But the number one thing I think about Phil, number one, or two things: Phil, badass carpenter. Another guy, blindfolded, could run circles around you, and he would do it all with a hammer, not a nail gun. He was an OG like that. But 2008, in a big suburb of Los Gatos, Monte Sereno, Phil's building a huge spec house, and he has private funding. Well, that funding gets pulled from Phil midway through the project, the loan he had. And honestly, if he could have that loan wouldn't have gotten pulled. He could have finished the project and sold it and made a profit. But since the funding got pulled and it was '08 and everything was crumbling around us, there was no other funding in sight, and he didn't have the capital to finish it himself. However, he had a couple $100,000 in sub bills stacked up when the funding was pulled. And instead of going to the subs telling him the funding was pulled and we're all shit out of luck, Phil dug in his pockets, paid multiple six figures to make all the subs whole, even though he knew he was going to lose that property and he wasn't going to be able to finish the project. He still made everyone whole out of his pocket, which ended up affecting him for years to come. I mean, he's finally out and he's doing great, but it was a tough time for him. And he knew it was going to be a tough time for him, but he made that decision anyway because he's just a solid dude like that. And that's how so many of my dudes are in the trades, and I really respect and appreciate that. So respect to Phil. Finally, and again, I'm gonna do a lot more of these. Respect. I have so many stories of so many guys in the trades that are just stand-up dudes, hustlers. They live by an honor code. Like, I can't tell you how much I appreciate these people. But finally, I'll talk about my buddy Chad, who in his late teens was arrested for selling cocaine and wasn't sure what he wanted to do. Got off without having to do a super heavy sentence in jail, and decided he wanted to turn his life around. Flew halfway across the country, planted himself in the Bay, decided he was going to work for his uncle starting to do foundation repair and concrete work. Took that, learned the craft, started doing it and pouring driveways on his own with the helper on the weekends, making side money. Finally got his license, was still working on his own, doing flat work, doing driveways, doing this, doing that. Turned that into, almost 20 years later, a 100-person company, one of the biggest in the Bay, one of the most well-known, and just runs a tight operation, runs a clean operation. His work is impeccable. He cares about his people, cares about his employees, and is one of the hardest working hustlers I've ever met. So major respect to that. That's a few examples of the people in the trades that I come across, the people that have been in the grind, the people that are up before the sun, the people that are home oftentimes after the sun set, building the country, building the homes that we see that everyone lives in. There's a heart and soul behind it, and the heart and soul of those people, and I want to give them mad respect during this holiday season and all year. So hopefully when you see a tradesperson, you can appreciate what it means and, look at them a little different. All right. I appreciate it.